Hello everyone, this is Sabrina and you're watching another episode of Coffee with Sabrina. Today, as you know, I always say I have phenomenal guests, but my guest today is actually the one who's always behind the scenes of all of my videos and my social media. So I am so excited to be doing Coffee with Sabrina episode with him today. I will let him introduce himself. Daniel, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. Very happy to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your background.
So my name is Daniel Brown, and I was originally born in California, and after about 2, moved to Michigan, was raised there for a good bit of my childhood, then lived in Texas ever since. And a bit more into my background, I did not have an easy childhood, to say the least. Home was very abusive in every way. Basically just alcoholic parent, took out everything upon us, and I was the youngest kid, so I was like everyone took their stuff out kind of down the line.
Right.
And so but it didn't only stop there. I also faced abuse in school. I faced a lot of challenges spiritually, emotionally, mentally, where like I had a lot of challenges such as coordination, talking, communicating. I couldn't read until high school with assisted help, and then in college I was able to learn how to read by myself. And so a good bit of my life I kind of had to learn how to survive and do it alone.
How old were you when you learned to read?
When I learned to read?
Mm-hmm.
15.
Wow. So throughout this before
yeah,
you didn't know.
I could like read out loud, but I could never comprehend because I had so much constant trauma and noise going through. I could never take a second of silence just because I was in a constant fight or flight mode, just because of the abuse and the consistency of it. And so that was kind of the way I tried to cope, was to prepare ahead to try to lessen the blow, even though it was still going to come. And
was there something that triggered you to find a way to concentrate, or it's just the help that you had to learn to read helped you with that?
So a lot of what led to looking for assisted help was my parents had started to realize I was struggling a lot in school, and they didn't show it because I had a good memory, and I was able to make it by memory up to a point.
Right.
But then you had to actually go further than memorization, and then that's when it became apparent that there were some challenges. And so it took me to a psychologist that I guess specialized in this area, and they kind of tested my brain to see what was going on, and they had basically diagnosed me as mentally retarded with also a 4-year middle school gap. And basically what that means was, even though I went through middle school, it was as though I might as well never took it. So I'm like coming into high school with all the pressure of college, and like can't even read, I can't even do the basic things that you would have already known through middle school. And so that was a brutal period through high school. I dealt with a lot of different areas, struggled with friendships too. So I kind of had to really kind of do it my own. What gave me some of the fight was I also was what would be known as a medical mystery case. That also started in high school. So at the same time of all this stuff going on, I started having really serious medical problems. I had a couple of near-death seizure situations that led to more problems. There was a situation after the second seizure where the doctor ended up making a mistake on their end, where they basically overdosed me and put me in critical withdrawal condition that also almost killed me. And right after that point, my life was like downhill bad. Like I was just kind of losing it because of just feeling like I was losing everywhere, feeling like underneath it all, like I can't catch a break. My whole life has been what felt like hell on earth. And then it's just getting worse, like a domino effect. And it's like, I need some help, but there's no one there to really help me out. And now I'm like facing near death, and I'm like, but in a weird way, after coming out of that and coming to this place of, you had a video where you talked about hell in the hallway. And so that was by far my hell in the hallway for sure. And I had originally just completely given up on myself after that point. And I even like told God straight up, I'm done. And turns out he had a whole other opinion about the matter.
Right.
And he started sending in some people. One started with a total stranger speaking love and life into me. And then after that, he brought in these 2 tutors. After going to this tutoring agency to help me, because I was so far behind to where I had to work triple just to catch up and then get to the place where I could get into college.
Were you willing to receive them?
I had a hard time receiving because my trust was crushed so many times, but I reached the place after the give up point where it was like it felt like a spiritual rebirth for me. Like no one's handing me the lifeboat. No one's coming in to save me. I'm gonna have to, like I was in that position, I have to make a choice right now to kind of start standing, or I'm just gonna remain in sand. And so I'd kind of made the decision that like I'm never gonna give up again, because I regretted it when God started speaking in my life. And then, so I was willing, but I had a really hard time trusting people, and especially the closer they were. Because the closer they were, usually the more abusive they were. And so, but I needed some grace and patience. I needed somebody to not look at me and just diagnose me with a problem. Because the reality was I didn't have these huge problems. I just had a lot of trauma that never got dealt with. And that's just going to catch up eventually. And so I was willing, but the tutors were so patient, and they taught me, which is not easy, they taught me how to comprehend. The steps for how to comprehend. They taught me how to narrow in and how to cancel out stuff, and they taught me how to read. And it started very elementary, and then eventually I started picking it up more and more. I didn't have really vacations. Summer vacations, I was with them all the time. Holiday breaks, I was with them all the time. I went to school and then come back, I was with them for 3 to 4 hours.
You had a lot of catching up to do.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I had this like big pressure deadline. And in the midst of it, keep in mind, I was dealing with medical stuff. So in the midst of all this stuff, I'm going to doctors that are literally telling me, you have something really serious that's really bad. I don't know if you're going to make it alive in your 20s, and if you do, I think you're going to be in a wheelchair, and there's nothing we can do for you. So that was kind of my life at that time, and so I refused to accept that I was just this problem person. Even if the things like happened, I was just like, I have to feel like if it did end, I gotta like give it everything I got at least. And I refused to believe that that was my life. And then I was able to graduate high school after a lot of up and downs, and then I got into college. And the way God moved me through college was really something. But I made very few know this, but I made a commitment with God and myself that to me, college wasn't about just getting the A's. It was my time for 4 years to do everything possible to learn the skill of how to learn. That was how I took it. I have 4 years to where all my time is how to learn, because that was where I struggled with just how to learn.
Yeah.
And so I gave myself a wall of I will never drop a class. If I
Right.
start one, I'm never going to drop, even if it's in the drop period and they're like, you need to go, I'm going to finish it through. I'd rather get an F knowing I did truly everything to try to make it right and to learn and not give myself a way out.
Now, I have to ask, and if you don't want to answer this, on camera, that's fine. But going through all of this, you talked about your abusive background.
Yeah.
But who was there for you all this time other than the outside people? No one, giving you that push, saying, hey, you can do this?
No, just me, and honestly, looking back, kind of God's voice, just kind of keep on.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't really know, but as I've walked more with God, He's shown me a lot more of the past of His hand there.
Right.
But I had at times, every now and then, a moment, or like with my sister, and so she was by far the best in everything. But there was so much at one time, and the abuse was so narcissistic, where not only did it get it, but it was like the kind where you were convinced that you were the abuser.
Right.
Very twisted, and where when you get out, you realize that it actually wasn't normal. So it was very twisted. But I mean,
You had to deal with that, and you had to deal with the fact of not being able to read and not being able to learn. And then on top of that, a health issue that, like you say, a mystery health issue, and going down the road you've gone. So I commend you. Because honestly, you brought up Hell in the Hallway. And Hell in the Hallway, I don't know if you've read it, but it's such a good book for any individual to read, because it could be as traumatic as your lifestyle, or not lifestyle, but what happened to you, or it can be as little as just going through a little time in your life, or a little phase, as we say. But that book is so helpful for that, because I talked about it in one of the videos where what Erin said in that book was, not a whole lot of people get out of it. And the ones that do are the ones who see and they learn from what was going on within that time.
Yeah.
Right? And why did you have to go through that time was for the growth. Because some people, they commit suicide, they go to drugs, alcohol thing, and they never get out of it.
Yeah, and it's so accurate. And I faced a lot of the frustrations. Like your question, I had that too. Okay, is there just one person? Can one person kind of help me? Because I didn't, really have somebody to look up to really model. It was not. And so I remember a lot of the prayers to God of just the whys, of course, that I'm sure everyone has asked. And he ended up answering my questions later on, after being an adult, being in a position to better understand the answers. And it's been for sure a journey, but a few things that he told me. One is you're called to break chains. Anybody who's ever been the first to break family chains knows it is a fight. It is not easy breaking chains. Just dealing with family politics, but also yourself. It's very hard because it's so intertwined. But for me, experiencing the love of God changed everything for me. And experiencing that when I felt like I in no way deserved it, but got it, it changed my whole world of love.
So did you do the change? Did you do the break to make that change? Was that something you went through, to change family background, history? Is that something you want to talk about?
Yeah. So when I gave my life to Jesus, which was in my room, and I experienced Him basically wash me with water and put in me a new heart. And the Bible talk about being born again, and I fully experienced that. It was a very personal thing, and after that happened and started walking, God was telling me about how much I'm of a new, there will be new seeds after me, to be a father of new generations. You're called to break chains, and I believed him. And so I started following just what the Lord was telling me to do and getting to know him more. And then when I met my wife, which is really amazing looking at this way, she is not only my wife, she is the first best friend I've had. Wow. And for me, it's really special in the sense of like, going so long without the friendships, without companionship, without community, without family, seeing the consequence of so much hatred of what that can do to family and all, to go from that to then to meet my wife, who is like the most pure person you'd ever meet. And man, like, it just was a additional shift for me, because I was somebody that it was really hard for me to give anybody trust, but her was like immediate. And through her and through her family and just experiencing that, and also the fact that I believed that through the walk and what God had done, that he spiritually had broken them. And because I experienced being reborn. So I believe they were broken, but I also knew that there were some physical things to do to, in a way, catch up to what had already been done. And then he inspired me to then, when getting married and everything, to have a change in my last name. Now, that's not the most common thing you hear about. You hear a lot of first name changes, not much about last name. And I was caught off guard when I heard the Lord tell me about it myself. But then he started showing me through scripture about like Moses, how after he was delivered, how he took after his father-in-law and continued down that line. And then also Joseph too, how he continued with the Pharaoh, and kind of showing me how that's part of my plan for you, but also represents a lot. It represents generations, because God is a king. That's what he thinks about. And so I made the decision to do that, to go forth to change my last name to my wife's last name. That's also my father-in-law's, because it represents not only what God has done for my life, to literally take my life from hell and death to a complete 180, and having a very blessed marriage, having a more multiplying family, having a daughter, which is a miracle of its own. I never thought I would have a daughter, because I was told of all the medical stuff I had. So that was a miracle, to say the least.
Right,
and
yeah.
So to give an idea of medical, on the car accident that I had from the seizure, it actually caused an adjustment on my spine where I was almost 45 degrees scoliosis, and it twisted my spine 180 degrees.
Wow.
So in a weird way, the doctors were kind of right, that based on that stuff, like, but at the time they didn't fully understand all of the stuff that took place. And so there's been I've had a lot of help, but there's also been a hand of God on me to stop things.
Lots of miracles, more or less. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, hearing your story, I remember back when we did our first one-on-one years ago.
That was a while ago.
That was a long, long time ago, right? So
Yeah.
I know some of those things, but I'm learning more today. And I think I am feeling it a little bit more, because we work closer together now, right? We're doing so much, and I look up to you for what you're doing for me, but also your history of your knowledge and all the things you do. So coming out of all of that and where you are today, how did you, I know how you got to this point, but how does it feel for you to be at this point? And what do you think is going to look like moving forward in your spiritual side?
It is, where I'm at now is one of those, it's miraculous. To say, I mean, it's just full out is. I felt like in a lot of ways I was given just a lot of new chances that was like kind of beyond my ability, because some of the stuff that God did, I didn't even pray for. And it was very, very gracious, but also taught a lot, you know. It's been very fulfilling to just go from one to the next, but also is like, the way that I'm adapting is more so down the line, is it going from where love, home, peace, safe, those are words I never knew growing up, that those going from new norm to just the norm.
Yeah.
And my prayer, which is my hope, is that, which is for my daughter and children, that in a way, like later on in the adult, if they ever catch wind of hearing my background, that they would be shocked where there's no way. Like, I wouldn't want them to have a piece of that. I want them to be of the new. That is actually normal. And so my prayer is for a generational legacy to be a building of a continuation after everything, because I don't want it to be just me. I want it to be kind of, as God has walked me through, a continuation of what has been started. Right. The redemption, the restoration. And so, interestingly enough, I relate a bit to war veterans, where how they feel when they come back from war to home. I dealt with that a lot. When I was kind of at home, not used to peace, not used to a constant war. Obviously, I didn't go to war. I relate to that of, like, in a weird way, home and peace was a bigger battle than just fighting against stuff beyond my control. And so that was an adjustment for me, that, oh man, I'm not in all out war, and I'm not at the bottom anymore.
Right.
And so now it's become like a norm. And that is amazing, to go from where I went to where love, peace, and home is just a norm.
Yeah.
And it's brought me like a diligence to fight to maintain the peace that so much fighting has taken place to get to.
So not only did you get over all of that, but you landed yourself your own little family, and the way you talk about your father-in-law, you also landed the extended side of it, right? So
correct.
It's like your whole childhood that you missed, you're getting to live that now. You're getting to see the love, the peace. You're getting to see what family life is like.
Yeah.
And I totally love that for you.
Yeah.
I guess I want to segue into, so with all your struggles, reading, writing, learning, going through college, all of that, you are phenomenal at what you do right now. You are amazing. I refer a couple of people to you, and all I could hear back from them is, oh my gosh, Danielle is amazing. But I'm glad to hear it from them, but I also know that myself, right? I was actually talking about you today for all of the things that you do for me, for my social media, for my websites, all the crazy ideas I come up with, and you always have a solution for it. You're just so quick. You're so smart. Like, you're sending me things that I need to be working on because it's trending, because this is what we need to put out. You're just on top of what you do. Tell me, how did you get to that point in your profession?
Well, one, I would say, because I had to do so much on my own, I had to learn a lot of discipline, and I had to be on top of myself because I didn't have somebody to come in and save the day.
Right.
In a way, I had to learn to do that with me. And for me, where I would say professionally, making the decision with college to not drop out was, as a young adult, probably the best decision I've ever made, because 60% of my classes, past half the year, I was failing. And then I ended up graduating with honors.
Wow.
And I would have never graduated with honors if I had dropped the class.
Yeah.
Because in a weird way, canceling out your ways out forces you to almost unlock like another gear of like, you start coming up with other ideas that you could do that you may have not if you had the way out. And so those taught me how to be on top of things. I started working in high school, even though it was abusive and all. My dad was an entrepreneur. He was one of those by blood entrepreneurs. Like, he could sell a pen on a sidewalk, you know.
Right.
And so I learned a lot about business development from just watching him and hearing him over the years, and the kind of prospects and people that he sold to. So kind of growing up in that environment, that's kind of what gave me the kind of business marketing bug, you know, and just kind of growing up in that. And when I went to college, it was the kind of the main classes that came what felt natural to me.
Right.
A lot of the other ones I had to work overtime just to get the most basic things. I had an extra read, but for some reason I was just really getting it. But I kind of grew up in that. I grew up learning what the owner experiences. I learned what it's like to sit in the big chair, what it takes to actually build, because my dad was certainly not lazy. You know, it took a lot of diligence to build. And so I learned those things of discipline, diligence, and also just business structure, business development, the things that matter to people, and how an owner, especially an entrepreneur, one that starts one from scratch, what they're thinking.
Right.
I really learned that, and I think that has helped me. It still helps me, where I know I'm still learning, but I know what they're thinking in that owner's chair. I know what they're up against. I know what it took to get there. I have a respect for them being there, and it's part of why it is a reason I do what I do, because I feel for the owner that feels like they're up against the walls, that they don't have any options, that all they see is obstacles, and they've invested all this money, they have a family, they have kids, they have all this riding on. Meanwhile, they've paid their staff, but they can't pay themselves because of everything going on. That is a large amount of why I'm doing it, is because I want to help more of those businesses find the light, find the clarity of what can actually work in your situation. And that's where it started, those kind of traits. And then self-learning. I was always learning. I was always doing case studies. I did case study games. Like, I would create marketing plans and case studies on big businesses, and I'd be like, what would I do in their situation? And I would do this and this. And
you would be awesome in this class I'm taking right now. Like, we do a lot of case studies there.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing those. And I did consulting projects while in college. I had opportunities through networking to help businesses with their marketing. And so while I was learning, I had experience from about the age of 17, 18, all the way through college and summers. And then after that, then graduated, and then that's when I started to grow more and more. I did a lot of work in the sporting goods industry, and I moved up high in that industry, up to a regional manager. I worked also in the TV broadcasting. That helped me grow my knowledge a lot in media, and also how to put together good media for 6-7 figure audiences at a time, and the pressure of that. And that taught me a lot too. So all these roles were big, but I would say being in a constant state of learning and educating, understanding the business. Everywhere I worked, I wanted to learn the business. Even if I was at a bottom, learning the business, getting the best I could, as if I was the owner.
Yeah. Well, you do that for me. I mean, sometimes you send me things and I'm like, oh wow, why didn't I think of that? I should have, right? I'm the business owner. But you do that for me. I guess let's back up a little bit and tell the audience what you do in your business.
So I own an agency called the Brown Business Group, and first and foremost, we are at our core, we are a solutions agency where we don't just put up ads, we don't just do social media, we don't just even do email marketing. We first and foremost are about putting together very personalized, prioritized solutions that help your business grow. And so it's not just about putting up the plan, where we look at the whole pie for how it will actually help your business grow based on your model and your audience. There's been many people where, as much as I love running ads, there's been clients where I've suggested to them to not run ads at all because of their model and their audience and what made the most sense for their business growth. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we do. And then we also have the full team of experts that are specialists in their lanes, and to help carry out any of our recommendations. We do a full suite of marketing services, from Google ads to social ads, social media management, YouTube, website, copywriting, CRM, as well as localized marketing. And we have departments for each of those, with lead specialists overseeing, with teams under them. So it's been a very quick growth with a lot of hurdles in the process.
Of course.
And so, but it's been a ride. And because I'm an owner of my business, I'm also helping other business owners in their business, and I'm basically mastering each of their audience as well as my own. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot for me to keep up with. And so, but yeah.
And I think that's great, because even for me, yes, I have, we started with my farmer's business, mm-hmm. but now I have Brasilia Studios. And then, the whole core of the visit was to grow the YouTube channel. And then I came with all these ideas that I'm going to write a book and I'm going to do this series. And you are, while I am busy doing all these things and coming up with some ideas of my own that are crazy, you're really polishing every one of them in such a unique and beautiful way that even though I have the idea, I'm not going in depth of some of the things that you're telling me. Hey, how about if you do this? How about if you package this? And you're giving me so many ideas that it's just making me think. So
that's the hope.
But also, it makes me know that I am important to you, that my business is important to you, and you're not just, collecting a payment every month and you're just doing whatever little you can do. Because I do a lot. I know I do a lot. And on top of that, you do way more for me than I would even think of. So for that, I'm super grateful. And that's why I say you're super smart. And I'm glad you brought that up, because even just me, one person, one client, you're doing so many different segments for. And you're doing it well. You're not just, I'm going to do a little bit here and a little bit there. You're doing it well. So I'm really grateful for that.
Appreciate it. That's the hope.
That's
the hope.
Yes. Yeah. And you talked about struggles, right? And one of the things about Coffee with Sabrina and highlighting business owners is also to talk about struggles, also to let everyone know that it's not a bed of roses. When you're a business owner, it never is. So you do have your struggles, you do have your, your pretty running into flowers moment, but that doesn't mean to say struggles won't come again, and we always have to change and do things differently.
For sure. And just a few kind of things that I've learned, and also learning from owners that are really far off. I always really admired the business owners that were really wealthy that you'd never know. But man, when they're talking and they walk you through, they're actually very successful, and you see why. I always admired them, and just because those are who I try to take more after, not as somebody to show off everything, but more so they usually were in it for really good reasons. They had almost all of them have a certain story or a hero's journey and struggles. And the entrepreneurship path is a path. I was told that one time, it's not a job, it's a path.
It is.
And you have to do it. It's a path where you wear every hat. If your business goes down, your staff might be able to go home, But man, they're all looking to you for the answers. They're looking for you to keep the ship steering. Even if you don't even know how, you still have to somehow come up with a plan. And so the ability to continually educate is really important. Also, the failures, man, you'll never forget. They're really important.
Yeah.
It's hard though as the owner because you have to pay for those mistakes.
Yes.
If you're working for somebody, the worst is you usually get fired, and those are tough. But as an owner, you have to pay for all this stuff now.
Yeah.
You have to keep it growing, and so I've definitely faced a lot of struggles with my agency. I started it here on a full leap of faith. I didn't know anybody here. I started it after moving here, being married to my wife. I had no contacts. I had none of those things. I started fully fresh, and I didn't have like any brand testimonies behind me to be like, hey, I know my,
right.
And so I had to really start from scratch, and learning along the way, wearing every hat. It was important for me to do everything so that anybody I hire, I can say that I did it. I can also help them if they need it. And also, I am trying to find specialists, like if it's ads, I'm looking for somebody that's really good and even better than me at that one thing that can even teach me a thing or two.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do in your business. And
Mm-hmm.
actually in this class certification I'm doing, that's what they're saying. Don't hire the people who are exactly like you.
Mm-hmm.
And we always know that as business owners.
Right.
But we are going to run out of time here, and I want to talk to you more. So maybe we might have to do a part two, right? But with that being said, before we close, do you have any final notes that you would like to share with the audience?
Yes, I would like to share the most common thing that I see coming into any business that we try to help. Just to throw like some recommendations your way. Nowadays with technology, with AI, as we know, is expanding, everything's getting more and more generic. Everything's getting more of the same, where you go to these websites and it's kind of the same, and that's going to continue to grow. So one of the biggest things that I see and that we help with is helping you dial in from the target to the center dot of a bullseye to your prospects. So I would highly encourage any business owners to take a good, some time with a pen and paper and get to know the prospects you're going to be talking with. When you're on your website, when you're on these socials, you're not there to walk them through stuff. You're not there to answer questions, and everybody wants to feel heard and recognized. Everyone wants to feel related to, like, oh man, I'm like in a mirror. This person's known me my whole life. That's what you're hoping for, is to really get down an audience. You will do so well being a master of one main audience that'll invest in you, create 10 businesses centered on the same audience, than being a master of every audience on the planet. Because you can't talk to everybody as much as we'd love to. Not everybody will be sold for what you do. That's why it's so important to know who your audience really is, but down to prospects. Like, we bring things down to so detailed to where, like, to specific needs, to specific solutions. Like, if you're a roofer, what are the specific reasons why somebody needs your roof? Look at that. And then from that, what are the specific solutions? And those are what we would look to promote, the specific solutions. And that also helps you with competition, because most competition with a lot of money, they're in the more generic stuff. So if you can dial in, you can put together a good 10, 15, 20 promotions on a specific, where it would cost the same to do 1, 2 generic. And so you'll go a lot further that way. So I just wanted to throw that free tip of how important that is to really dial in. It's the thing I see the most that we're usually helping with, is in that communication to the prospect. We spend 80% of our time studying your audience and what they're doing, and we take that off your plate if you don't have the time.
Right. So if they're trying to reach you, how should the audience contact you?
So you can go to thebrownbusinessgroup.com. You can go there, and I'd be happy to schedule a one-on-one with any of you and get to know more about your business and have a free one-on-one strategy session.
Right.
You can go there. I just started socials, so I just started Facebook and Instagram. You can find me there as well, the Brown Business Group as well.
Awesome. And all of your information will be linked below the video also.
Yes,
So
I'll make sure of it.
You will make sure of that, yes. I was going to say text it to me, but what's the point? You can put that in. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you for sharing your background, sharing how how you got from there to here, but most of all, your struggles, right? One of the things with Coffee with Sabrina is it's not scripted. And I always wanted to be transparent. So as much as you want to talk about, or as least as you want to talk about. And so I love when my audience, when my guests come in and share with the audience a little bit about their background, a little bit about their history so that we can connect, right? Because I connected with you, that's why you're on this show. Everyone that's on the show is someone I connected with. I don't think anyone on my show, I haven't had anyone on my show that I have not used in business or will not use. So I connected with that person. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate everything you do for me with my
Absolutely.
socials. So thank you.
Happy to.
Well, guys, again, I want to give Daniel a big shout out for everything he does. If you go to every single one of my social medias, you're going to see all the work he put into that. All I do is sit here and talk, or I do my videos, and he does all the editing, all the uploading, everything that needs to be done. And of course, I'm here at the beautiful Brasilia studio doing this video today. Until next time, bye-bye.